Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to be making a low carb meal. I know a lot of us are eating low carb. Maybe you're following the ketogenic diet or keto, or you just want to eat low carb, or maybe you're a diabetic and want to have some meal ideas to reduce your carb intake. So that's what we're going to do. I always do want to put out the disclaimer that I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist. These are just the things that I eat as a person who eats low carb. So we're going to get started with a mini meatloaf with spinach that we're actually going to bake in portion sizes in our muffin tin. To go alongside that, we're going to make some cauliflower mac and cheese, so to speak, cauliflower and cheese. It's instead of the pasta that we can't have, we have macaroni, and honestly, it is delicious, or not macaroni, but cauliflower, and it is delicious. And to go alongside that, as kind of a salad side dish sort of thing, we're going to have a warm bacon coleslaw, and it is delicious, and you will want to eat the whole thing. And honestly, that in itself could be a meal. But we're going to get started with the meatloaves because they need to bake about 30 minutes. In this bowl, I have about a pound or so of, I like 80% for meatloaves and burgers and things like that. So it's 80% ground beef and a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste. Now, a good idea to use up, if you don't use the squeezy tube of tomato paste, if you get the little can, we very rarely ever use that whole can in one recipe, but what you can do is after you've taken out your couple of tablespoons, take your tablespoon measurer and just put some on wax paper or parchment paper or something on a baking sheet in portions, freeze it. When it's solid, take it off that, put it in a Ziploc bag, and you've got tomato paste ready to go. We're going to mince up some onion. Now you could use shallot if you wanted to, or even green onion if you wanted to. I don't have either one of those today, so I'm just using part of a regular yellow onion. Now, you want to make sure this is minced pretty fine, and you only want a couple of tablespoons of it because it's not being sauteed before you put in the meatloaf. And if you wanted to use like an onion powder or something, you could. I just want to mince it up pretty fine. So I'm going to go in here with a sharp knife, and I only want a couple of tablespoons. That's probably plenty. You see how fine that is? That's kind of what you want. If you want to make it even finer, you could take your knife and go over it, or do it in a food processor or a mini chopper. That would work too. Whatever, however you want to do it is fine. Just a couple of tablespoons. You don't want too much because you got a lot of flavor going on. Now, one thing I will say, if you are eating low carb, you know, you got to amp up that flavor, and sometimes that'll come through fat, which is A-okay, it's delicious, but you can add more spices and things like that to amp up the flavor if you want. I think you should do that in any kind of cooking. So this meatloaf has a ton of different flavors going on. We're going to get some fiber, some vitamins, some minerals, some iron by using spinach. Now, if you don't have fresh spinach, you can use the frozen chopped spinach. Just make sure that you thaw it and you wring out all the excess water. But I just have some fresh today. And you want, oh, I don't know, a cup or so, just a handful, a bunch of fresh spinach. I just bought the baby spinach in the bag, but you can use the bunches that you buy. Spinach cooks down to nothing, so you can use quite a bit, and it's delicious. If you really just don't like spinach, you can leave it out. I love it. I love spinach. Raw, I love it cooked. Don't like it out of the can. I do buy frozen spinach a lot because I think that's one of the best bargains in the grocery store, along with rotisserie chickens. Want to kind of mince it up. You don't want to have big pieces of your spinach, so chop it kind of fine. You just want it to mix throughout the spinach. Great way to get your kids to eat some vegetables if you chop it fine enough. And I think that's probably good. Okay, I'm going to add that to our bowl. Kind of one of those dump and go things. Now, we're going to take 1 egg. I'm going to beat it, but I'm going to go ahead and put in some other ingredients. I've got a little bit of garlic, and I like a little bit of ginger, just minced ginger, not the dried ginger, completely different flavor. This is fresh ginger that's minced. If you don't have it, just leave it out. Don't substitute the dried. A little bit of, I like coarse grain mustard, but you use whatever kind of mustard you like. Of course, some salt and pepper, and a little bit of cayenne, and just a little bit of any kind of herbs you wanted. I used a little bit of Italian seasoning. Little tiny bit of soy sauce. Gonna blend that together before I add it to my meat mixture. And then to bind it a little bit further and to add a little bit of richness, some almond flour. I would not substitute coconut flour. I find coconut flour really absorbs the liquid too much so in this kind of application. Now we're going to mix it up. I have a muffin tin that I have sprayed with just canola spray or coconut. I like the coconut oil spray. Get in there with your hands and mix it up. You could, if you don't want to bake this in single serving sizes, you could just form it into a loaf and bake it that way too. But I kind of like doing it in the muffin tins. It really helps you control your portion sizes. And if you're trying to eat low carb or, you know, lose some weight, then that's what you want to do. Now, this is a loose mixture, as you see, because I don't want it to be like a hockey puck. Let me rinse my hands real quick. I don't need to wash them, I just want to rinse them. Well, I'll wash them. Want to keep your hands very, very clean when you're working with raw meat. All right. Now, I like to use a scoop. You don't have to, but I think it's easier if you use a scoop and just go in there and you've got your ready to make meatballs. Or, of course, you can take your hands, but I just think this is easier. Don't overwork your meat mixture, or you will have tough meatballs. Or not meatballs, but meatloaves. But this could be used as meatballs. If you wanted to make them smaller and bake them, you could totally use this as meatballs. Now I've got that one a little bigger. You want them to be about the same size. And then we've got our oven preheated to 375 degrees. You'll get about 8 servings or so, depending on, you know, how much meat you actually use. Okay. Yeah, let's get the rest of that in there. You don't want to waste that for sure. Let's find that one could use a little more. Kind of pat them down, press them down. And then pop that in a 375 degree oven for about 30 minutes. And they will be delicious. I'll be back in just a minute. I'm going to clean up, rewash my hands, pop these in the oven. When I come back, we will get started on our cauliflower. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty now, our meatloaf muffins, if you will, are in the oven, and we're going to get started on our cauliflower and cheese, which is a low-carb substitute, if you will, for macaroni and cheese. But honestly, I think it's delicious. I don't consider it, I guess I should say I like it equally as well as mac and cheese. I don't feel deprived when I eat this, but I like mashed cauliflower, I think, better than mashed potatoes. So cauliflower is a staple if you're eating low carb. It just is. Now this is a whole head of cauliflower that I've washed, rinsed under water, and I have cut into florets about the size like this, as you can see. You know, smaller pieces. I've got about a tablespoon of water there. The easiest way to do this is in the microwave. If you don't want to use your microwave, you can just steam it on top of some water. But this is just really easy, and it needs to go for about 9 minutes. So let's get that in and put it on 9 minutes, if I can get my microwave up there that quick. I didn't have it preset here for you. There we go. Let that go, and we will start our cream sauce. Now, in my nonstick skillet, I have a couple of tablespoons of butter that I'm mincing or melting, and I'm going to mince up some onion, just using part of that other onion that I used in the meatloaf. I want to mince it kind of fine. I don't want it big chunks. Just a little bit. You don't want a whole lot, just enough to add a little bit of flavor. We're actually going to saute these onions in the butter. So let's go ahead and get that going. I think that's probably plenty. Use as much or as little as you like. And if you don't like the flavor of onion, and some people don't, then just don't put it in there. It'll be fine. You will need some salt and some pepper, some cayenne pepper, a little bit of thyme, a little bit of garlic powder, or garlic, whatever, however you want to do it, and some, I like a little bit of thyme in mine, but you can use whatever kind of flavorings you like. I need a little spatula here. We're going to saute this in the skillet. Let's get that heat up just a little bit. And this is going to be our cheese sauce that's going to go over top of the cauliflower. Now, you could make this very same thing and put it over any vegetable that you like. It's good over broccoli. It's good over asparagus. If you're eating low carb, it's really, if you don't eat low carb and you just want to make this sauce, you can put it over top of some roasted potatoes. It's delicious too. Whatever you're eating is fine. However you want to eat is fine. All right, now I've got some salt and some pepper, and I just want that to saute. The reason I'm going ahead and putting my spices in here is so that they have a chance to bloom in the fat, because that's very important when you're working, especially with dried herbs and spices, because they really, most of them are oil soluble, and they need to be activated in oil to get the full flavor of it. It really makes a difference. I tested something one time thinking, all right, does that really make a difference? And so I made a sauce, and I put the herbs and things in there before I put the liquids and other things, and then without, and it really does make a difference. The herbs and spices become more pungent and just are delicious. Now, our side dish is going to be some coleslaw, and I'm going to go ahead and start cooking the bacon. Let me get this one on. I want to get some bacon going in that oven because it needs to be cooked, because that's going to be the basis for our dressing. So I go ahead and mince mine up prior. This got a little soft sitting out here. Makes it a little harder to dice. Bacon's a lot easier if it's really cold, but that's okay. I'm just going to mince it up a little bit. If you want to fry it whole and then crumble it, you can. That's fine too. I never put raw meat on my wooden boards. You know that if you watch this program at all. I always use a separate kind of board. This is just one of those, like a hard Corian type, but you can stick it in the dishwasher when you're done. I never put raw meats on my wooden boards. I don't know. I just don't. They say it's safe as long as you wash it, but I don't want to take that chance. Just pop that right in that skillet. We're going to brown that. Put this in the sink. Here's a little hint for you when you're cooking. Put your knives that need to be washed on the side of the sink and not down in the sink. I cannot tell you how many times I have cut my fingers trying to, put my hands in soapy water to wash dishes, only to find that there's a knife in there. So always put your knives on the side. Never put them down in there. And inevitably, when I forget to do that, I cut myself. All right, that's sauteing nicely. We're going to cook the bacon. And we're going to make our dressing for the bacon. We just let's get another thing here for the bacon. Now, warm coleslaw is one of my favorites, which cabbage is one of my favorite vegetables, if not my favorite vegetable. I love it. And I like it raw, I like it cooked, I like it anyway. But when you just make like a warm coleslaw, especially with a bacon dressing, oh, it's so good. This dressing, by the way, if you want to just make the dressing and put it on a salad, is delicious. Over like a spinach salad, ooh, so good. Can add some walnuts to that salad. Add some spinach with some, now traditionally it would have a sliced apple, but if you're eating low carb, you don't want to do that. But you could add some chia seeds or hemp hearts, which I love in a salad. All right, now our onions are sauteed. Now I want to turn this down a little bit. I still want it on, but I turned it off there. And you want to add some shredded cheddar cheese. Now you're going to want to watch this so that it does not burn and stick. Let me grab, I like to use this kind of whisk in my pans. And if you want to add a little bit of milk or cream to get it to help melt, you can, but it's not absolutely necessary. You really don't need a whole lot of heat here. You're just really trying to melt that cheese, and we're going to keep it warm until our cauliflower is done. So actually, I'm just going to set that off to the side for just a minute. I'll show you how to finish up the sauce in just a second. Let that go. Now, I want to check my bacon here. I'm going to take a quick break, just clean up. When the cauliflower comes out, I'll show you how to finish that up, and we will make our warm coleslaw. So I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now all I did was take the cauliflower out of the microwave and put it straight into the sauce and stir it up. And that's all there is to that. So that just needs to stay warm while we finish our meal. The bacon is cooked, and I just took it out and put it on a paper towel lined sheet. Leave the drippings. Add a couple of tablespoons of minced onion. We want to saute that onion just a little bit. I'm going to cut that down just a hair. I don't want to get grease all over me. And while that's sauteing, let's mix up the rest of our dressing ingredients. I have some apple cider vinegar, some coarse grained mustard, some salt and some pepper, and a little bit of olive oil. I like the flavor of the olive oil in this. Mix that together. Set that to the side. Saute your onions till they're, no longer just raw. Take that raw off. I don't care for raw onions. Stand back and add your dressing mixture to your skillet. It will kind of splatter up a little bit. Take your whisk that together. that's done. Just to kind of take that little bit of the heat off of that apple cider vinegar. Now, in this bowl, I have just a bag of pre-shredded coleslaw mix. And I'm going to pour this right over it. I mean, this is so simple to do. And then take some tongs, because that's hot, and mix all of that together while it's hot. This is good hot, it's good room temperature. And then add in about half your bacon. You want to save the rest for the top. Stir all that together. Now, doesn't that look delicious? Oh, I just love this dish. And then put it in your serving dish, however you're going to serve it. We'll do that in a minute. And then add in the rest of your bacon on the top. And that's it. That's one of the easiest, quickest, fastest, most delicious side dishes that you can make. I just love this dish. I could eat that whole bowl as my meal. All right. Now, I'm going to take a quick break real fast, clean up my dishes, get everything served up, check on the meatloaves, and when I come back, we'll finish up this meal, and the best part, we will taste. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now this next step for the meatloaves is optional. They are cooked through, but I like a little bit of a glaze on my meatloaf. If you don't, then you do not have to do this next step. I have some sugar-free ketchup and a spoon that's too big, so let me get a smaller one, get down in. This is just dry mustard, a couple of spoons, that's a half a teaspoon, so probably about a teaspoon and a half because I heaped them up there. And then you will want some brown sugar substitute. Now, I really do like this particular brand, which is Swerve. A couple of tablespoons or so of that, and that's going to caramelize and just make those meatloaves over the top. I put this on all my meatloaves. This is just my favorite little glaze for my meatloaf. Now, if you wanted to make, excuse me, a brown gravy, that would be good too. You want to preheat your oven. Again, after you take them out, either pop it up to like 425 or 450, something like that, or you can put it under the broiler. You just want a little spoonful on each one. Oh, it's going to be so good. It's going to caramelize and brown and just be delicious. Make sure you got enough for everybody before you start spreading like I did. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. That was about probably half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of ketchup. Each one's probably getting a tablespoon. So good. So good. And then put these back in the oven for just a minute. Maybe 3-4 minutes, just long enough to get that topping warmed and the brown sugar starts caramelizing. Doesn't take long. Okay, now, let me get this out of my way, and we'll plate up this meal. Okay, and again, if you wanted to make like a brown gravy or a sauce or au jus, something like that would be fine, whatever you like. I just like that glaze. Now, here's our slaw. You always want to taste for seasoning. So let me grab a fork. Before you serve, everything needs to be tasted for salt and pepper and final spice. Let's get a little bit of that bacon. That is so good. And then put that in your serving bowl. Now I've kept my cauliflower and cheese on the stove to keep warm. So let's get every bit of that out of there. Oh, so good. I love that dish. And there's your wonderful warm bacon coleslaw, or just a slaw mix side dish. Goes along with anything and everything. This pan's heavy. Let me get a spoon and get all that out into your bowl that you're going to serve in. If you want to sprinkle it with some extra cheese, you can. If you wanted to put this in a baking dish and then top it with a little bit of crumbled up pork rinds and Parmesan cheese to make like a crumb topping, if you will, and put it under the broiler for just a minute, you totally can. Although it doesn't need it, but some people like that baked crumb topping. You could make your own topping out of just pork rinds crushed up and some grated grated Parmesan cheese. Maybe sprinkle it with a little bit of dabs of butter over it to help that brown. Pop it under your broiler for 5 minutes and you be good to go. That is so good. It just is delicious. Now I need to taste that, make sure my seasoning is good for that. Let's see here. That is so good. That tiny bit of cayenne that we put in, which is about 1/8 of a teaspoon, just kicks that flavor, bumps that flavor up. That's delicious. And if you're eating low carb, you don't have to be deprived. You can make wonderful, delicious food that's low in carbohydrates. Our meatloaves are done. Just takes a couple minutes just to sort of warm that through. They need to sit in this pan for about 4 minutes or so, 3-4 minutes, so that you can take them out without them crumbling apart. They need time to solidify, to get together. So I'm going to leave them in here. I'm not going to serve them on the plate, but that's what they look like done. Let them sit in here for like 5 minutes before you try to take them out. They will reabsorb the juices and they won't fall apart. If I take that out right now, it will crumble. So let them sit for about 5 minutes before you serve. There you go. There's 3 easy, delicious, low carb foods for you to eat any day of the week. You can have this done start to finish in under an hour, 45 minutes really, for your dinner any night of the week. Thank you for joining with me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.